Get ready, Staten Island. It's time to celebrate 5 years of Ferry Hawks baseball.
The Ferry Hawks are back at SIUH Community Park this week against the Hagerstown Flying Boxcars. A 5-game series starting Wednesday with first pitch at 6:30. Thursday at 4 p.m., it's Jewish Heritage Night. Friday at 7 p.m., it's soccer night and kids glow around the bases postgame. Saturday at 6:30, it's Broadway night with postgame fireworks and Broadway rave. Sunday at 1:30, it's Military Appreciation Day and the kids run around the bases.
Visit ferryhawks.com now to lock in your seats. This is Cop Talk, talking crime, cases, and backing the blue. Now, here are your hosts, Captain Ed Mehmet and Detective Kevin Schroeder.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Cop Talk. I'm Kevin Schroeder, your host. I'm here with my guest co-host today, retired Sergeant Rory Capra.
Nice to see you, Kevin. Thank you.
And retired police officer David Giordano.
Thank you, Kevin.
And today's guest is Leigh Bishop. Leigh is a former assistant district attorney in the borough of Queens, New York, Queens County, New York. She was also the director for Babies and Toddlers Task Force with the New York City Medical Examiner's Office, and currently a clinical instructor at NYU Grossman School of Medicine. Welcome, Leigh.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for being here. So, Leigh, I know you're not from New York originally. You're from Alabama.
Roll Tide.
Oh, there you go. But would you please tell our listeners a little bit about your background, where you grew up and how you made it to the DA's office and how you made it here to Cop Talk?
Oh, my goodness. Thank you. I am from Birmingham, Alabama. I grew up there, went to high school there, and then went on to college in Memphis, Tennessee at Rhodes College. And from there to Dallas, Texas, where I went to SMU Law School. And yikes, 30 years ago, came to New York and started as an assistant district attorney in Queens County.
Now, what made you want to come to New York and actually apply for Queens County District Attorney's Office?
You know, everybody always asks me that because they think like, oh, New York must have been like from outer space if you're from Alabama.
Girl, yeah.
And not Manhattan, Queens, really?
Yeah, no. So luckily, I grew up coming to New York a fair amount, so it wasn't complete outer space to me. But at the time I applied to work out of law school, the big cities would take the new kids out of law school. So it was sort of an East Coast or West Coast choice for me. I think I had San Francisco and New York as choices. So I went with the East Coast.
Oh, good choice. Good choice.
Yep.
Even though it was Queens, but it was a good choice. Dave? Rory?
Oh, so you started with the district attorney's office then in Queens in like 1997, right?
Yes.
Wow. It seems like a lifetime ago, right?
Yes,
For me.
it does.
Now, the district attorney at that time was
Judge Richard Brown.
The legendary Richard Brown.
Yes.
Very good DA.
Yes, he was.
Fabulous.
Pro law enforcement for sure.
And you, I'm sure, started out like most ADAs. You probably just handled like complaint room stuff and did the basic cases. But then it seems like you had a little bit of a talent that he recognized.
Well, I was very lucky early on to get chosen to serve in the Homicide Investigations Bureau. So
Regular homicides.
Regular homicides.
Okay. Yeah.
And it was a great learning experience. It was a program that Judge Brown started where the young ADAs, a handful of us, would respond out on all these cases. And it was really our opportunity to get out of the office, out of the courtroom, and meet NYPD detectives, be at crime scenes, go to precincts, kind of like, learn a little bit about how the sausage gets made. So it was a great opportunity.
Yeah. So in June of like 2014, Judge Brown then kind of tasks you with or appointed you to head up what became the first ever like child fatality unit.
Yes.
And I think that was the first in the nation.
It was.
And so everybody else kind of followed suit after you. So you were the parent of that, so to speak. Yeah.
Well, I mean, Judge Brown really gave me a wonderful opportunity. I think he had a lot of vision and he was certainly innovative. And I was very excited and pleased, to be a part of it.
Now, when you were with the, investigating homicides, prosecuting homicides, you'd be on call, correct? Like the
Yes.
24-hour call.
Yep.
And was that an entire week of 24? In other words, an entire week of overnight, midnight shift, or was that just one day a week you would have the duty to go out on a homicide?
So in homicide investigations, which was early, like in probably like 1999, 2000, each of us sort of had one day a week. I think, we rotated through. But after I did felony trials and then eventually got very focused on the baby and toddler cases, I was pretty much just on call all the time.
Gotcha.
And it was, it was great. Like I got to know many detectives and worked very closely with both homicide squads in Queens. So it really, after a while, I didn't really regard it as work. It was just what I was doing. So,
Right. So you got to know the Queens homicide unit pretty well.
yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
Good.
With a
great.
22-year career, you were no stranger then to law enforcement and dealing with interagency, multi-agencies.
Yes.
And even with that task force then, you were also then dealing with homicides and serious assaults of infants and toddlers. And as you say, you specialized in under 4.
Right.
Is there any particular reason why it is under 4? Is that a major category? Because most police are not really aware of this kind of thing. We're used to dealing with your everyday street assaults. And yeah.
So these cases, I think, are completely fascinating, and they are very different from most homicide cases, which are, usually shootings or stabbings or something of that nature. What I learned over time is that babies and preverbal toddlers, so kids who can't talk, if they are, obviously if they die, they can't talk, but even if they're assaulted, they can't tell you what happened. So the doctors, the police, children's services, kind of everybody that you would expect that's involved, you have to put the case together, understanding what the injuries are, and then kind of establishing circumstantial facts around how those injuries occurred. And it's very interesting because, for instance, you might have an 8-month-old might have a broken femur. Well, okay, in and of itself, that may not be a crime. It could be a crime. It could be an accident. It could be because the child has weak bones. It could be because the child accidentally fell down the stairs. It could be because dad picked the kid up and snapped his leg in half. So they're hard cases to medically diagnose because the doctors need the context, and they're hard cases for the detectives to investigate because they've got to provide context without fully understanding what the injuries quite are. Right. And so when a child dies, it's even more difficult. I found over time that people generally leave their little babies, their young babies, with people in their inner circle. So like a spouse, a grandparent, an aunt. And that's very different, say, from like a 4 or 5-year-old who's in preschool or nursery school or kindergarten and, having like more exposure to the public, or even just babysitters and daycare. And the kids under 4 who can't speak are the most vulnerable. And the leading cause of homicide in this age group actually is for babies and toddlers under the age of 2, and it's something called abusive head trauma. And abusive head trauma is pretty much how it sounds. It's when you do something to a child's head that either causes very severe injury or death. And interestingly, the cases, usually there's no external sign of trauma. So like going back to what you said before, in most of these like street homicides, right? Like there's a guy lying dead with a bullet in his chest or his head.
And we can see what's going on.
Yeah. But with an 8-month-old who's DOA, that baby may look just the same as a baby who died of the flu. And so, again, this presents challenges medically and certainly to the investigators.
Leigh, is this what you're describing? Is this what we know as the shaken baby syndrome?
Yeah.
Or
So shaken baby syndrome is a subset of abusive head trauma. So shaken baby syndrome is when you, grab a baby generally by its torso, but could be arms, ankles, whatever, and shake it like in a whiplash, acceleration, deceleration, apply those kinds of forces where the brain is going back and forth against the skull. Much like if you were in a car accident and had whiplash, but it's just a very, very violent back and forth.
Are those common in children 2 and 1 and 2 in that age group?
So that age group is the most vulnerable. And you can understand that because when babies are little, their heads are disproportionately large for the rest of their body. Like as we grow up, we kind of balance out. But and babies have weaker neck muscles, so they're more vulnerable. They also, as I said before, can't talk. So they can't say like, oh, my stomach hurts, or, oh, change me, or whatever it is. So in my experience, many times when these types of crimes occur, it's mostly because the adult has just sort of like, they've fed them, they've changed them, they've rocked them, and the crying just won't stop. So it's this sort of born from frustration.
So you've kind of, in the course of doing all this, you kind of developed a lot of the protocols that are now used by our sex crimes units and other units around the country in investigating these kind of cases, yes?
I have worked with many, many detectives in our city and across the country. I wish that we had a formalized gold standard for investigative practice in this case. We need that.
So we really don't still have that.
So we need to formalize that. But I can tell you for sure that when the team works together and when everybody sort of understands their roles and the roles of other people on the team, it is a great investigation. And what I mean by that is it's a great you solve the case. It's really solving a mystery of why this baby died. And, sometimes in my experience, about a third of the time, that means a crime occurred and hopefully we figured out who committed that crime. But in most of the other instances, we're able to say, a crime didn't occur. Yeah. And that is obviously very important for a grieving family.
Sure.
And also it reduces the number of, we're not really sure what happened. And for me, those are the worst because I feel like you really owe it to this baby to account for why this child died. Yeah. And when we don't, it just sort of, it leaves a question mark. It also can leave, children's services in someone's home where they really shouldn't be.
Where they shouldn't be, right.
So
which is a waste of a lot of time.
It's a waste
of
resource.
Yep.
It's a waste of time. It's an imposition on the family at a terrible time in their lives. So I think a lot of these cases wind up kind of in that undetermined category. And for me, that's the worst. Like, we need to get to an answer.
Now, Leigh, would you attend, when you were in Queens DA's office, would you attend some of these autopsies?
All the time.
With the detectives as well?
Routinely. Yes.
Okay. That was good, yeah. When I was in Midtown North Squad, late 1990s, there's about 4 or 5 of us and our wives were pregnant. And we had a situation of a death of a baby, very similar to what we're talking about here. And our boss, so I think myself and another guy was going out on, and our wives were pregnant. And the boss said, no, you stay here. And he sent out guys, who had, all the children. Because, then, as you know, you're going to have to go through the autopsy, and, it's just a horrible scene anytime.
Yep.
But, yeah, it's now, do you go around and do lectures in regards to? You do?
I do. I teach.
Can you tell us about that?
I run a big national conference in New York City every other year. My most recent one was this past November, and that is usually with the Office of the Chief Medical Examiner. I partner with NYPD, NYU, Grossman School of Medicine, and other sort of child protection related nonprofits. it's a big conference. We get a lot of people locally from all the DA's offices. NYPD is a tremendous support. They always send lots of detectives and investigators. ACS, Children's Services here. And then, many people come from the tri-state area. They can drive. It's easy. But this past year, I had people from 41 states and 9 foreign countries. It was awesome. And it's a multidisciplinary conference. So doctors, lawyers, prosecutors, defense attorneys, investigators, and social workers that are in this field. Yeah, great.
And what you're discussing then is all these like advancing protocols and how to investigate and
a lot of it. I'm so blessed in my career to have just been taken under the wing of so many different types of professionals, including doctors from around the country, medical specialists who are huge in this field, and they graciously give their time to come. And it's so important for investigators and lawyers who do this, to have some instruction from doctors, because you've got to really understand what these injuries are, what the symptoms are for the investigators. So when they're questioning people and like, that could be a symptom, that's a point in time on our timeline that we really need to dig into a little bit more. So you've got to kind of understand a little bit about medicine in order to understand how to do your job as an investigator or a lawyer. And I think really that's the hardest part of all of this, is everybody understanding that there isn't like an expert. Everybody's got to sort of step up with their expertise and put it all together to help these cases along. And that's where the success in Queens happened, is once we all kind of gelled that way. It was great. When
you're collaborating with all these others, because obviously, I mean, this is expansive. You have to, it's not just the police, it's not just a district attorney's office. You're dealing with, as you say, with doctors, medical professionals, hospitals. Then you're also dealing with other agencies like ACS, and then some private child groups. So here's my nitty-gritty question. Do you get any pushback?
Never. Why ever would you think that?
Never.
Agencies become very territorial. What we know, we don't want to share with you. Yeah.
I have found that there is the greatest chance of success in these cases when you have a team that really knows each other and trusts each other. And when I was in Queens, I can tell you 100% with the homicide squads there, it took time. I mean, I got locked in plenty of closets and, had plenty of garbage thrown at me.
It took some time to, invite you in.
It wasn't love at first sight, but over time, I have to say there were some really great relationships that formed, and some just really strong trust that formed that today I will still get calls from detectives that are there. Could you look at this? Could you help with that? And, even with doctors in the hospitals and the ME's office, you really do, as I said, it's been a blessing for me to form these relationships. And I think that's really like the secret ingredient to success, because you kind of, you learn that's really not so much your ego. I mean, the detectives have the guns, but the doctors have their stuff too. And,
we got a stethoscope.
They got a stethoscope, and I mean, I always describe myself as like Julie on the Love Boat with a clipboard. Like that was kind of like my role.
Kind of looks like that too.
But it was very. It was a great time in my career. It really was.
Now, getting back to Queens detectives, homicide detectives, did you deal much with the investigators? Now, not the civilians, the actual detectives and investigative units in the squads?
Of course.
The A squad?
Yeah.
Did you find yourself having many cases with them, or it was mostly homicide?
So, one thing I learned over time, the way NYPD manages these cases, assigns these cases, I should say, is interesting. So, as I said before, babies and toddlers can't talk, right? So, in my mind, whether the child is severely injured or whether the child is dead, it doesn't really matter because you're not interviewing the child to find out what happened.
Right.
However, under the NYPD organization for case assignment, children who live but are assaulted, babies who can't talk, those cases go into the special victims child abuse squads, right? And those squads are largely tasked with looking into crimes against children under the age, it's either 11 or 13. But most of their cases are interviewing kids, like, how did you get hurt? Was there sex abuse here? Things of that nature. So they have great skills in terms of forensic interviewing and kind of putting cases together that way. The assaults on the babies it's like those are circumstantial cases, right? Mm-hmm. So it's a different skill set. And so I found that on the kids that died, they would be assigned out to the numbered squads paired with the homicide squads. And those squads were accustomed to dealing with circumstantial investigations. Right. The babies that lived are still under special victims. So it has always been my dream to have one team that just does babies. So we will see. We will see in time whether that can come true. Yeah. But I think there's a lot of there are a lot of great reasons why we need a team, or at the very least, we need some people maybe in each homicide squad or what have you that really are super trained and have some medical, because these cases really are specialized.
Yeah.
The biggest stage in world soccer is days away, and every goal changes everything. And now FanDuel's giving you a reason to root for every single one. Introducing Every Goal Pays. Bet on a match and get bonus bets for every goal scored in that match. Oh, that's right. More goals means more bonus bets, and all you have to do is turn on your token. Visit FanDuel.com and get started now. Let there be goals on FanDuel.
21 plus select states for Kansas in affiliation with Kansas Star Casino. 18 plus DCKYWY. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. 1-800-MY-RESET. 888-789-7777. Visit ccpg.org/chat. Connecticut. Visit mdgamblinghelp.org. Maryland. Visit gamblinghelplinema.org. Call 800-327-5050. Massachusetts. Call 877-8-HOPE-NY. Text HOPE-NY in New York. Call 877-770-7867. Louisiana.
Visit FanDuel.com. Get started now. Let there be goals this summer on FanDuel.
No, for sure. We just have to hire more police officers that they could become detectives.
We've got great police officers, but I always like to say,
we have great ones. I'm just saying we're short manpower.
We just need to pool them. I think differently. But I like to say, if there was like a ticking bomb in the lobby of the building, we probably wouldn't want to do like next up, right? Of who's catching. We'd want to call in the bomb squad and, bring the expertise in. So.
Right. Yeah. It's just.
Leigh, in your experience with this now, you've been doing this for years. You've been collating a lot of information. So I'm going to use a bad word in policing now. Have you developed a profile of an average abuser?
Absolutely not. If anything, my experience shows me that it's most people that commit these types of crimes against babies have never had prior contacts with the system. There's definitely no profile. And that was always what made these investigations even more interesting to me, because it could be dad, it could be mom, it could be an aunt, it could be anybody. And you just could not go into the investigation with the bias or an expectation of who it was going to be. So I that was another thing I found fascinating.
Just piggybacking on what Rory asked you, have you published is there any literature out there that you've written that for public consumption or even in law enforcement alone, published? Anything published?
So I have had the great fortune to work with a number of board-certified child abuse physicians on several articles that have been published.
Okay.
I've done some chapters in textbooks, things of that nature.
Very good.
Have you ever? You never wrote a book before, have you?
No.
Was
That's
you ever think
coming.
about writing a book? I mean, is that next? I mean,
We'll see. I don't know.
Maybe have a podcast on talk about babies, toddlers, and
Rory could be your
homicides.
ghostwriter.
Okay, I'm ready. Let's go.
Yeah, I think got to sign you up for a podcast for sure.
But, in investigations, we all, the investigators, cops, we're always looking for some kind of a nexus for something. So now we're saying that there's no profile for the abuser. What about, is there any susceptibility or something for the child, the infant, that is more likely to lead them to be abused? Is there something, like off the top of my head, I'm thinking a child that obviously shows some type of abnormality or, Down syndrome or something?
Right. So I would just say, I'm speaking very generally. Children with disabilities, especially at a young age like that, are 3 or 4 times more at risk for abuse and maltreatment and neglect. But I would say, generally speaking, and just in my experience, I mean, you do get those cases where there's a bad beating, or, I've had many burn cases, like both with fire and with water. There are many, many ways that you can kill a baby. But I would say babies are most vulnerable at points, say, where they're like teething, or where they're like kind of crying. They go through periods like around, it can be like at the 4-month age mark, or maybe sometimes 7, 8, 9 months, where their bodies are changing, and maybe they're learning to eat new food, or they're having stomach aches, or they're teething, or, they're just kind of harder for the parents to manage. And then, as what I've also found is that as they get to be 18 months, 2 years old, 3 years old, and they can say no, and they can not follow commands, and they can run off, then the injuries change, and it's often less about head injuries and much more about what we call solid organ injuries, which are, lacerated livers and broken ribs, and they're, beaten. The trauma is more in their abdominal area than their head area.
It's fascinating stuff.
Something we haven't necessarily touched on, because we as cops focus on the investigation, but you as an attorney are involved with that. But also, what are some of the difficulties in the prosecution of these cases?
Yeah.
Has your training and your insight led to changes in laws, or have you developed other protocols within the law to prosecute this stuff?
So that's a great question. It's a long answer.
That's okay. We got time.
So over all these years that I've been at this, I can say definitively, if you don't have a thorough, solid medical and police investigation, you will never have success after that. You just won't.
Right.
So everything comes down to a very thorough medical workup, a very thorough police investigation, and then those two things have to be synchronized. And what I've learned is that developing a timeline that can incorporate both of those investigations really tells the story of the case. And it becomes a useful tool really for everyone involved, because the detectives, I like to start with the detectives on the timeline. And as you have that timeline, and I don't mean DD5s that say blah, blah, blah. I mean like an actual timeline. Mm-hmm. And you can literally see the gaps. And so that helps the detectives figure out, well, I need to find out what was going on here, because I don't know what was going on between breakfast and lunch. Mm-hmm. The doctors need this timeline, because if they've got a dead child who's got severe brain trauma, they can look at the severity of that and different findings in the brain and really through the body, and figure out, well, when did this happen? Because if the brain injury is severe enough, then the symptoms of the head injury will appear almost immediately. So again, the investigators need to understand the symptoms of brain injury so that when they're doing their interviews, they say, oh, the kid started throwing up, or oh, the kid, stopped breathing or had a seizure, or whatever the case may be. But at the end, once you have the medicine and the police investigation merged, for the prosecutor, you've now got, now we can figure out who did it. Now we can figure out what, if any, charges are appropriate. Now we can figure out what the facts are that support these charges. We can write our complaint. And I have to say, when I write these timelines, I can already hear my summation, so it's, I think it's really important for the lawyers, the prosecutors to be out working with the detectives and the doctors from the get-go. I'm a big believer in taking in the smells and sounds and the vibe of the interviews, all of these things really help to complete the narration of how this child became injured or died. And by the way, to get back to your question, which is what are the legal issues here? Some findings that occur in babies can mimic abuse. So in one setting, it may be the result of a disease. In another setting, it may be the result of trauma. I had a case where a child with a brittle bone disease was also abused. So you can see where that gets crazy.
Sure. Where's the dividing line on that? Yeah.
So you've got to, if you're going to bring charges, you've got to be able to prove them out. And one thing that I like to remind the detectives when I train them is, most of the time the detectives are like, well, okay, we got to get PC and then, we put cuffs on and we're good. Well, of course, the DAs want you to get to beyond a reasonable doubt. I'm even worse because I'm saying you got to also defeat whatever the defenses are going to be in this case. Right. And again, that goes back to a good, thorough investigation and knowing what the defenses might be so that you're ruling those out as you go. And a good prosecutor will be working with the police, understanding that him or herself, anticipating it, so that really by the time handcuffs go on anybody, we should all kind of know what's going on here.
Yeah. Right. And it works two ways as well. Being a detective, I have to, rebuttal. Basically, detectives do a great job, right? Greatest detectives in the world. And we have some great DAs here in New York City.
I'm nodding, by the way.
Okay. But, however, it works both ways. We present a great case to the DA's office, don't screw it up. You know what I mean? Really, be on your game.
Yeah.
And most of the time I've had great experiences.
Yes.
But I've had a few as well, and I'm sure many detectives can tell you the same. They probably said to you, oh, Leigh, you're great, but there's other DA, But whatever. So, but yeah, we totally get it, and I totally get it. So it's
These cases, I think, are the hardest in state court. And there's a lot of controversy involved. I think it's courtroom controversy. I don't think it's medical controversy. But of course, when you bring in medical experts on the defense side and stir it up,
it becomes the battle of the experts.
It becomes very difficult for juries to really get to justice, which again is why I say, you win or lose the case in the investigation, and it's really just so important for everyone to be working together early on.
Actually, you brought up a good point. The jury.
Yeah.
Right? That's what it comes down to as well.
Obstacle can be. Yeah.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm. This has been a great session. Really, really fantastic. Dave, any last words?
Let's go another 45 minutes.
I love to have you back.
Oh,
if it's possible. And by the way, I love that accent, Alabama.
I didn't notice.
Yeah, you heard the twang. Yeah, I heard it a few times. Wait,
I thought that was a Queens accent.
Oh God.
Queens via Alabama. Yeah. So how y'all doing? All good stuff.
Fascinating stuff.
Really, really interesting. Really great.
It's great. You really need to publish something.
No, seriously, there's a lot of folks that are totally unaware of what you just
I'd
we
like
just spoke
to.
about.
Yeah, no, I love to teach and talk about this to anyone who's interested in listening.
No, it's really, really fantastic.
Well, hopefully you've gained some new listeners now, and people are going to look
thank
into this
you.
from a law enforcement perspective, because it is a topic that really a lot of cops just don't deal with. But yet we respond to domestic incidents all the time, children. So now when you become aware, right, knowledge is power. Become aware, you can maybe spot something, see something that you might have overlooked.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Leigh, is there any email address or website folks can go to if they want to hire you to be a lecturer or come and speak?
Well, I don't know if I'm going to give my phone number out on the radio.
No, but do you have an email address?
I'll
or?
just tell them to reach out to you.
That's
and I'll make
fantastic.
sure you have my number. How's that?
Sounds fantastic.
Okay.
Perfect.
Thank you for
That's
having
a good
me.
deal. Thank you for being here. Leigh Bishop, everyone. Okay. Rory, as always, thank you for being here.
Thank you, Kevin. Thank you, Leigh.
David,
Thank
as
you.
well.
I love it here.
Thank you. So, Leigh Bishop, anyone wants to get a hold of Leigh in regards to coming
Just call
and
Kevin.
paying for a lecture, give us a call. You know where to reach us. Until then, I want to thank everyone for listening to our podcast, Cop Talk. Until next time, God bless you. God bless America. God bless our U.S. military, and God bless law enforcement throughout the country. Thank you.
Roger Stone here. Your dollars are losing ground, but gold isn't. American Sovereign Bullion helps you protect your wealth through real, tangible assets. Through their nationwide wholesaler network, you get some of the best pricing on gold and silver delivered straight to your door. Since 1912, the U.S. dollar has lost 97% of its purchasing power. Meanwhile, gold continues to prove its strength. So call 844-272-2428. That's 844-272-2428. Or visit dyingdollar.com to request your free gold and silver guide. That's dyingdollar.com.